Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Stoyan, since you are already here, have you attended the last meeting?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think the same for George, but we checked it and it was not shown. So I even checked it with Jessica yesterday to do this way too complex who is an active member metrics. And you and George, both of you were not in the list of I I was there. Um,
Just
so
to add a little bit more context, I checked via PCC. PCC is the LFX tool that we use internally in LF to register people to a meeting. If your email address or if you register with a different identity, that's not going to register in the tool. So if you have another email address that you want to use for registration, please let me know.
When you say registration, what do you mean?
Your email address. So I can if you have the Discord, you can message me and you can confirm the email address that your primary email address. And
Because here I always join as a guest. Maybe that's the
I
problem.
that's
think
why.
that's the point. Yeah. What you can do, what I do sign in, and what you can just do, click on GitHub, and I sign
Yes.
in with
Ah,
that
Yeah, that
works
will
okay.
register.
because otherwise we have this problem that we cannot track that. Um,
Okay.
I mean,
Let me do this now and let's see
yeah,
if it's okay for next time.
Thank
yeah,
Okay.
you. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
I'll be back.
So while we're waiting on Stoyan, I think I can already start because Stoyan heard that more than often enough. So welcome to the TSC meeting, the Hiero TSC meeting. Like any other meeting we do at the Hiero project, this is an open and public meeting, means this is recorded. You can have a look at the recording later. Everybody is invited to be part of this meeting. Today, again, I see way over 20 people currently already being here in the meeting, which is great. And with that group coming from different companies from all over the world, we have two simple rules that makes it easy for us all to work together, which is first of all the code of conduct of the Linux Foundation that we use as our code of conduct. We looked at it, I don't know, like some months ago in more detail. In general, I assume all of you have already seen a code of conduct, so you're all welcome. Everybody is allowed to say something here in the meeting, ask question, add concerns, start a discussion, but please do it in a friendly way, in a nice way. Then everything is great. And next to that, to the code of conduct, this meeting happens under the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. So again, we have this new, what I introduced last time, this new activity sheet for the TSC members. So because we have, from my point of view, way too complex rules when a member can vote and when not. So today, every one of us would be able to vote if we have a voting, and I assume we will have votings. Which brings me to the agenda that always starts with the approve of the previous minutes. I've seen Megan already did it. That's so great. Thanks, Megan, for that. I missed it. I was in a meeting with Jessica all the time before this meeting, but I will have a look at it and then we can merge it. And Brandon, maybe for you, the minutes from 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were some comments from Jessica, so a change there was needed. Maybe you can have a look at it so that we can merge that one too.
Absolutely.
That one is merged already, but since it was basically a restructuring of the any typos across the meeting minutes, but unfortunately it's not gonna work for what I was planning to automate, because we figured this option with the table is probably the best way to go right now.
Okay, good. So let's start with the topics of today. So the first topic, I put it at the top because I hope that is straightforward and we can handle that within a very short amount of time. So in the last meeting, from time to time, Jessica and or Roger gave an update about the great work they did by fixing all the open issues that we had regarding moving to graduation, like having all the readmes in a good state, having the OpenSSF scorecard generated for all our projects linked in the README, have updated maintainer lists for all projects, and so on and so on. And all those issues are done, which is, from my point of view, really great, which means I believe we're in a very good position to start the graduation process. We, as a project, had the goal to get graduation for our 1-year anniversary, which would be in September. Looks like we were too fast. So it's over 1 month, but I believe it's fine, and I think we can start the graduation process. How that works, I had a look at it. I had a discussion with Tracy from the tech about it. So in general, it's quite similar to the quarterly and annual reports we need to do for the Hiero project, where mostly Jessica, Diane, and I take care of. So we will fill out a document, write a text about why we should be a graduated project and so on. And then I can create a pull request at the LFDT tech about it. And then in an upcoming tech meeting, it will be reviewed. And in general, the rule says that for a project, the maintainers need to vote if that happens, since we, with all our sub-projects, would have way too many maintainers. I discussed with the tech, and best solution would be to do a voting in the TSC and vote on moving the graduation forward, and let me or somebody else, if somebody else wants to do it, create a PR on the graduation process. So are there any concerns or any points somebody would like to discuss on that topic?
I posted the issue link in case you want to run a vote. We have Git vote now configured, so this will be the perfect opportunity to try it out.
Yeah, I will talk about that in a second. I assume not all here know about it, but yeah, we can try that out. So any comments, any concerns? If not, I assume everyone is fine with it. And let me see. Do we have quorum? We have Milan, we have me, Riemann. We have Stoyan, we have Alex. We have 5 people out of, yeah, we have 5 people
Out of 8, yeah.
out of 8. Okay, do we need 50 or 75%? We should add that here too.
I think 75.
75, right? Yeah, so we have it. No, we have
No, we have 5 out. We need 6
62%.
out of 8 for 75%.
Yeah, that's right. So we do not have quorum. So we cannot vote for that. Which means to move that forward, maybe we can do an asynchronous vote on that one, because it looks like nobody has any concerns here, and I do not see any point to wait longer on it.
Hendrik, just real quick, is there any, if we are rejected for whatever reason, just as a for discussion,
Yeah.
is there any delay of trying to resubmit, or is there any penalty, so to speak, of trying to do it if there's a chance of us being rejected, or are we confident that we're going to get?
So I looked in some of the other proposals for graduation, and I mean it's not black or white, right? So my assumption here would be if some information is missing or there's a minimalistic thing that need to be changed, that can even be done in that process because we got feedback. If there was something big missing, I don't know, like we have horrible code quality, we never did a release, we have no contributors at all, nothing for this is weird to us. Then I don't know if there's a defined must as delay until you submit next time. But if we won't get it, I think it don't make sense to submit it like 3 months again later again, because if we don't get it, it will be something bigger why we don't get it. That's my gut feeling here.
Right. Okay.
And then we need to work on it anyway. But I have not read anything about a defined period in the documentation.
When I brought up this question to Tracy, she mentioned that we can apply as many times.
Yeah.
We can apply outside of the project reviews. We can always put it in the agenda. However, I would think it would look bad on us if we are replying and failing. So we should definitely take our time to review everything if we, for whatever reason, we don't pass.
Yeah. So what we could do for the TSC to not have us blocked here, I can work on the document, on the proposal, and can share it with the TSC, and then next week or the week after next week, we can vote on the final proposal that this is submitted to the tech. What do you think about that?
I mean, that sounds reasonable to me, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, then let's do it like that. Then we are not blocked. I can move that topic forward, and we'll come up with a concrete text to get the TSC vote on. Okay, so the next topic is the election of the missing TSC seat. As you might know, there's one TSC seat that is currently not filled. And until last week, we had a nomination phase to nominate people for that seat. And with Brendan Davenport, May Chan, and John Augustine, we have 3 nominations that has been created. And currently the voting on that election is running. And in the next TSC meeting, I and or Jessica will announce who will have the last TSC seat. With that, then the TSC is full. And yeah, we have a even more diverse group, which I really like. And we will directly start with a new meeting because my wish is once we have that, to have a meeting on the TSC lead. While I'm doing it here, and I was never voted for that or elected for that. So having an election on that would really make sense from my point of view. Any questions on the election process or on the current election? Okie dokie. So what we have today, we have two HIPs. And I see Nana is here. I see Mark is here. So I assume, oh, and I see Mike Tinker is here too. So I assume you will present the HIPs to us. Is there any a specific order, one HIP you would like to start with? I just put them like this here, but I'm fine to change the order. Mark?
Yeah, the order is fine. I was just curious, do we have enough votes to vote on these today?
We can, yeah. So we can not, but what we can do, and that would be my suggestion, have the presentation anyway, and then we can decide if we want to vote asynchronously on that before the next TSC meeting or vote on the next TSC meeting. But in that case, I will ping the people who are not here today and please them to watch the recording so that the presentation is today, and then in worst case next week we can do the voting.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. And thanks for your flexibility on getting this on the agenda. Really appreciate that.
Totally fine. So who would like to present?
So Nana will be presenting 1081 and Michael will be presenting 1127.
So Nana, should I stop sharing and you can share?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then the stage is yours.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Perfect. And then let me know when you see my screen. You should be seeing the HIP.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right. So it's a bit of a big one, but I'll try and not assume full context and everything, and I'll summarize it. So this is HIP 1081 block nodes, and this follows up to HIP 1056, which was block streams. So the summary really is that block nodes are a new type of higher network nodes, right? So the goal here is intended to ensure the fast flowing persistence and distribution of network data. So in short, block nodes are in a form a decentralized data lake for blocks and state information produced by consensus nodes. Some context of today's network, the consensus nodes today in the network produce a lot of different data types. So record files, event files, sidecars, state snapshots, and signatures. A lot of that was aggregated in the HIP 1056 with block streams. And today, most of that information is uploaded to S3 cloud buckets in different cloud providers. Consensus nodes also have to manage things like state snapshots and the resources that go around that. And they also manage things like reconnect attempts from other consensus nodes, right? So we have our consensus nodes not only focused on processing transactions that come through, think about 10K TPS, but we also have them focused on these extra facilities or functionalities such as state snapshot management, uploads, and reconnects, right? So the result of that is that with this information going up to S3 cloud buckets in some networks, the API for accessing network data can sometimes be expensive for many operators. I see some mirror node operators on the channel, and so they'll understand some of this as well. And it can also be restrictive depending on where you are in the community, right? In comparison to other networks where it might be very easy for community members or anybody to run a specific node type that gives them access to raw network information. So that's something that was considered and something that Blocknodes wants to address. And as I mentioned before, consensus nodes are also forced to do additional work and spend resource outside of transaction and consensus scaling. And right now, only consensus nodes have access to true hash graph state, right? So the consensus node today in the Hiero network is the only one that has a full representation of state and therefore accounts and balances and everything. Everything else is sort of taken out from that. But the full state, if you wanted to look at that tree, that's not something that is possible outside of the consensus node today. So some of the goals of the block nodes HIP and the project is really increasing data availability, right? We want to ensure that all transaction, event, and state data is accessible to network participants so that they can verify. We don't want people to have to assume. We want people to be able to verify for all of their circumstances. We also want greater decentralization and increase the number of and diversity of data lakes, right? So anybody should be able to hold this information and do what they like with it. We also want to improve client diversity. So we want to enable operators and open source developers, regardless of their platforms or languages, to more easily engage with the network data, its distribution, and again, its verification. And like I mentioned before, we want to offload some of the work that the consensus nodes have to do today. So the solution, in a sense, is this new node type that I mentioned, the block node, and it sits today in between the consensus node and the mirror nodes. In this tier, there's a concept of tiers, and that's really where the block node is located. So a block node that is getting information, a block stream coming from a consensus node is considered tier 1, and everything after that is tier 2 onwards. And so tier 1 block nodes will be the recipient of block streams pushed from a block node, and they're aimed at low latency, high throughput transmissions of block streams. And this should open up many use cases. We talk about DeFi, we talk about the financial institutions, and this low latency and high throughput is something that's really important to them, and we're able to bring that to fruition. Block nodes will build out blocks. They will take in the stream, build the blocks, they'll verify it, and they'll persist it and make sure that's available to mirror nodes and other clients, as you can see in the diagram. Block nodes will also expose unique APIs to both stream the same block streams that come in, individual blocks, but it can also do additional things, and things like, a lot of you have been waiting for state proofs and other things, and state snapshots, and that ability that I mentioned before to expose state information. The block nodes will also maintain live state, and they'll also be the recipients or in a sense, the coordinators of reconnect, right? So we'll be able to move the logic that currently sits on the consensus node over to block nodes. And so reconnect attempts by other consensus nodes can be done and fulfilled by block nodes instead of consensus nodes. And so consensus nodes can focus their resources on transaction scaling and consensus management. Block nodes, some of you will have read the HIP 1056 block streams HIP. In there's this concept of filtered block streams. And so block nodes will be able to decide, block nodes outside of tier 1, so tier 2 onwards, will be able to decide that they want to hold filtered blocks, right? So you could say, as the block stream is coming in, I'm only interested in certain transaction types or certain state. And so you as an operator have the ability to manage and filter down the things that you want to store on your block node. And so this is part of that diversity that we mentioned. Anybody should be able to run a block node. Anybody should be able to decide what they're storing, but this isn't at the expense of verifying that data. So in 1056, we highlight how to verify the blocks, the information, the history of the network, even if it's filtered, right? And so block nodes will allow consensus nodes to focus, as I mentioned, on processing transactions, coming to consensus. They'll allow mirror nodes to also focus on indexing data and making sort of higher entity level details available to anybody. Block nodes will also be independent in their operations, so they don't have to be coordinated with consensus node upgrades. And like the mirror nodes today, they can be upgraded out of band. And so this is really cool for a lot of different user types. As I mentioned, different operators can run their own nodes, and block nodes aren't limited to only the API specified in this HIP. Builders can build additional custom APIs on top of what's offered. They can mix and match, and we're really excited about this because it opens up a new sort of node economy that's pushed by the community, right? This is allowing the building blocks and the builders in the ecosystem to do more. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. No, I think that's about it without going into too much. The rest of the HIP highlights in detail what the APIs are, the specific communication protocols between consensus nodes and block nodes in this sort of tier one fashion. And it has a couple of ideas that were related to the concept of block nodes that were either rejected or delayed, but there's a lot of interest and excitement here. And so we're really excited to get this out. And so we're looking for the requirements approval from the TSC. Let me know if I can answer any questions.
Hey, Nana, can I just bring up one
Yes.
point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. The one thing I did want to mention, I know there's a lot of mirror node operators on the call and perhaps watching this stream. Today, the record stream is loaded to cloud buckets. What the block node does is really replace those cloud buckets with this decentralized data lake, as Nana mentioned. As a result of that, today, mirror node operators do requester pays for their data, so they actually have to pay that egress cost to get the data out of the buckets. With block nodes, that goes away. Additionally, as Nana mentioned, we'll be streaming the blocks, so there won't be that query and discovery for new records on the from the mirror node to those cloud buckets. So from a mirror node operation standpoint, we see this reducing the cost and complexity of operations as far as keeping up to date with the stream. So just wanted to mention those two aspects from the mirror node point of view.
And just a clarification that the tier one block nodes are the only ones that can affect the operations of the network that they're attached to. So
Correct.
if there's no tier one block nodes, the network stops.
Correct.
But all the tier two and everything else, that's just supplemental to address business cases or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. Yeah. So tier one, really good point, Alex. One of the focuses of tier ones is this support to be able to ensure the persistence and the access of network information. And so as consensus nodes are individually pushing out their blocks, they must be received by our tier one block node. In dire worst case scenarios, if consensus nodes continue to try to push blocks and they aren't received by a block node, it could affect the consensus and it could halt the network. And so this comes down to how many block nodes there are, the fact that these will be run by trusted and dependable operators. But many and more things can be done at block tier 2 onwards that don't affect the consensus progression, correct?
And then from a discovery perspective, what's the defined mechanism for consensus nodes to discover tier 1 block nodes when they come online?
So it will probably be a phased approach. So where we have block node discoverability. I think I have it in the references section called out in another HIP. That's HIP 1137. So we want to dig in a bit deeper here, and we didn't want to have all of that in here. But initially, what that might look like is similar to how SDKs and mirror nodes do today to find which consensus nodes. And so tier 1 block node information will be extremely public and known. And so consensus nodes will choose which block nodes they're pushing to. That's also an interesting note to highlight, that consensus nodes push to block nodes in this case, right? So the network information coming out of the consensus node, each consensus node will decide which list of block nodes to push to. And so they'll explicitly define which block nodes. And in the beginning, when these are deployed, that information in terms of IPs and others will be publicly available for consensus nodes to set. But also as part of the whole decentralization of this, we intend to make this a lot more easy and on operators, so that the bar or the barrier to entry isn't so high in terms of being able to be discovered at tier 2 levels onwards. But more to come in that HIP 1137.
Okay.
So
I see
Dana, there are
gonna,
several hands up. Do you want to get to the people or should I do the moderation? Up to you.
I can do it. I'm just gonna go in
Perfect.
order. I think Zoom puts it in order, so I think May's hand was up first.
Hey, Nana.
Hey.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this for a while. I guess what do current apps on the network? And I'm thinking like wallets and DeFi retail, like SaucerSwap or Bonzo or those kind of marketplaces. What will they have to change once this comes through?
It's a good question. For the most part, it depends. So if you are running your own mirror node, the least that you would have to do would be upgrade to a mirror node that supports this architecture. So that should be very easy. The mirror node team has done a lot of work and made progression to make this very seamless. So it should just be about updating your mirror node to a version that supports this. If operators or in your case want to access the block node versions, then you could run your own block node, say at this tier 2 level, tap into another tier 1 block node and customize it as you like. You could do things like filter down transactions that you only care about for your wallet, feed that into your mirror node or into your dApp directly, so that you're holding on to less data, but you also have the things that you care about in terms of the raw information. So there's a lot of different things that you could do depending on where you sit.
I think most applications on the network, and the ones that I'm thinking of, to be clear, do not run their own infrastructure. They are just building an app and then they want to submit transactions and they want to grab data. So like right now, what they would do is they would submit transactions to consensus nodes, which is unchanged here, but they would also do queries to the consensus node, and then they would also read from mirror node APIs.
Correct. So
would they now read from block nodes at some point, or is
No,
that
mirror nodes. Nothing changes.
they'd still correct? Yeah, as Lehman said, yeah, they'd still read from mirror nodes. Nothing changes there. This process should be seamless to them and transparent.
Is there any reason why they would? Because I see that there's data that comes out of the block node that goes directly into other apps. Is that not part of it? So like you would put like DeFi apps to the right of mirror nodes, perhaps?
Correct. So this is where DeFi apps
I
would be
got it.
today. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, and then I have one other that makes it clear to me actually. And then I just have a follow-up question, which is would consensus so block nodes seem pretty like fundamental to the model now. Would a consensus node operator right now also run a block node, or is it going to be completely decentralized in a sense, and you have your consensus nodes potentially streaming out to hundreds of tier 1 block nodes, and they would have to do that individually because block nodes don't do consensus between each other or don't update each other? Like, how does that kind of work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. So block nodes at tier 1, there will be multiple of these. We do envision a case in the future, this is where we want to get to, where every consensus node runner has their own sort of block node that helps with the low latency. Initially, that doesn't have to be the case, but we'd expand to that. It's interesting that you spoke about how block nodes will communicate to each other, so that there's actually a rejected idea here, or I should say a delayed idea here, and how can block nodes communicate or gossip between each other to sort of make the availability of different information more visible to each other. But yes, an operator or somebody running a consensus node today will likely want to run a block node as well to be able to feed that off and ensure that their consensus node is able to push out block streams. And the other part of your question, yes, a single consensus node will be able to push to multiple different block nodes. It's actually part of that interest to ensure that they get blocks, right? So consensus nodes are coming to consensus. They want to get their block information out so that they can progress. So it's in their interest to get to any one of these tier 1 block nodes. It doesn't matter whether it's theirs or somebody else's, just so far as it's trusted. And by that, block nodes will be verifying blocks as well. using TSS, and that's in another HIP, and giving that information back to consensus.
One more question that I'll have, just because, and then I'll let other people go. So is there a scenario where consensus node A pushes to block node A and consensus node B pushes to block node B, and you have incomplete data on those tier 1 block nodes?
There should not. The reason being that the consensus nodes are only pushing out information that the consensus network has come to consensus on. I use the word consensus too many times, but using TSS, which is in another HIP, right? The block streams coming out includes the block proof that says that the majority of the network weight has come to agreement on the information being pushed out. And again, these block nodes will each be verifying the block that comes out. So
Okay. I know I said I had one more question, but this is the last one. Couldn't you have a malicious consensus node that pushes out to a block node that's not reading from any other consensus node? I know you've thought of this, so I'm really curious.
Yeah. Leon, feel free to jump in
Yes.
if it gets a little deep, but TSS, the verification of the block proof, handles all of that. It's verifiable in that sense which consensus nodes have agreed upon the information that's coming out of the consensus node.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Brandon, I think you're next.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Lehman, were you going to jump in? Go ahead. Okay. No, just really quick. I was just going to say this is awesome. Richard and Jasper did a good presentation on this at HederaCon, but just on the tier 1 block nodes, this is something we've been chatting about internally at HGraph, but I was curious, as we continue deploying more hardware and nodes, I know that tier 1 block nodes ideally are going to be hosted geographically more close to consensus nodes and different things like that. And I was wondering, is there any kind of restriction or documented requirements for tier 1 block nodes, just so we can get more educated, because we're definitely motivated to help decentralize the data side of the network and work our way up the stack to support. So let me know if there's any other info or if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely something we have to adequately document and make available. So we're working on it. No list yet. I think you're asking about sort of hardware requirements. So that would be something that we put out in terms of
exactly, or anything we would have to prepare on our end. Just if, for example, HGraph, we'd love to operate a tier 1 block node. So what are the different things that we would need to do to position ourselves to do that, just outside of deploying more hardware that we're doing? So yeah, anything that comes up in that way, very interested. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, more information to come.
Yeah, Brandon, I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn. Would like to just have a conversation with you guys on the
Absolutely.
plans. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Lehman.
Yes. So many of the questions have already been asked that I wanted to answer, but there's several things I wanted to say about it. The requirements, the hardware requirements, are basically the same as a mirror node is today. You need to have bandwidth roughly equivalent to mainnet. You need to have more storage, but you need to have less processing. So it's very much like a mirror node today. This is in some sense like a new kind of mirror node. Old mirror nodes will continue to exist. And so any applications that are using mirror nodes shouldn't see any difference. Everything should be totally invisible. They shouldn't see any changes at all. Maybe the latency gets slightly better, but maybe not even that. Maybe just really nothing changes, not even latency. And so it should be very easy for people that are just using mirror nodes. If you're running a mirror node, you will have your life getting better. You have to make a change, but then you're getting better things. For the block nodes themselves, the plan for Hedera is to have each council member run both a mainnet and a block node. And initially, it won't be every single one, but over time, we'd like it to be like that. And so there'd be 2 computers sitting next to each other in a data center. For a small high-road network, a small private network, which you might have if it's low traffic and you have kind of low-end hardware, you might very well have one computer that has 2 processes running on it, the mainnet and the block node. And so your mainnet node is a block node. that would make a lot of sense. And then transferring data from mainnet node to block node is extremely fast. It's just two processes on the same machine. And so you can visualize it that way. And that means it's not adding latency. There was the concern, well, what if a malicious node is talking to the block node? They can't lie. So today, the only way that you can get truth, or be sure that you're getting truth, is if you go to one of these buckets and you download data that came from most of the network. You have to have signatures that came from most of the networks. You have to go to one R3 bucket that was fed by most of our mainnet nodes. With TSS, with the new state proof stuff, all you need is something from one node. One mainnet node will output to one block node. And if you talk to that one block node, you know everything you need to know. The other mainnet nodes do not have to feed into it for you to trust it. It will give you a cryptographic proof. You check the proof and you know what it's saying is true. You know it's the consensus of the whole network, and it cannot lie. So the only thing a malicious node could do is simply fail to send out the data. And because it's all chained together, you would know that it is failing to send out the data. But it can't lie. It can't skip some data and make you think that it didn't skip anything. It is cryptographically required to do the right thing. That's all.
That's awesome. Thank you. So yeah, it seems like we're spec'd pretty well on our end for hardware. So I appreciate that, Lehman.
Thanks, Lehman. Yeah, so just to close this off, again, block nodes are pushing the decentralization story of the network information coming out. So consensus nodes today will push block streams to a tier 1 block node. Block nodes will also be able to take over sort of the management of reconnect data, the uploads and archive of that same information as well. They'll continue to feed, or they'll feed mirror nodes so that the experience of developers and operators today is continued and uninterrupted. Block nodes can also be linked together, and block nodes can also feed other applications to take advantage of some of the benefits of block streams, such as filtering and others. And block nodes will also expose, I think I mentioned this, but just want to clarify, block nodes will also expose things like state proofs, block proofs, and block content proofs, all big things coming from HIP 1056 block streams. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Michael, would you like to start on 1127?
Yes. 1127 is a small, basically companion to what Nana just talked about. It aims to improve the ergonomics for block nodes or other consumers of the block stream by removing some extra layers in the protobuf messages that come in through Happy at ingest when you submit a transaction to the network. Some of those protobuf messages are a bit heavy for something that just ultimately needs to represent a transaction in a block stream. So this is titled Unified Transaction Record Format. It specifies how these happy protobuf messages can be cleaned up a bit before they are presented in the block stream. The main challenge in this HIP is just making sure that if you are a Mara node consuming the block stream, and someone is trying to look up their transaction by its hash, that you're still able to take this consolidated form and continue serving that lookup by hash API in just the same way you were before. That's the only delicate part. Otherwise, that's it in a nutshell. Simplify what comes in through Happy when you're presenting it in the block stream. Any questions? Yeah, sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks for presenting those two HIPs. Let me go back to the agenda. Okay, so the next topic is the Hiero SDK publishing plan, and it's Simi who wanted to give an update on that and asked me to put it on the agenda. So, Simi, the stage is yours.
So I'm going to share my screen. Last time we presented the general plan for how we will manage either dual publishing or hard cutover for JavaScript, Rust, and Java. But at that time, we didn't have a clarification on when exactly this process of either dual publishing would start or when the hard cutover for the Java SDK would occur. And so we now have most of the work done to do the dual publishing for JavaScript and Rust. Roger, if you want to add anything, you can. And so we're able to come up with version numbers where we can start the dual publishing process for JavaScript and Rust. And then also, along with that timeline, provide a version number where the hard cutover for Java would occur. So for JavaScript, we're proposing starting the dual publishing process from version 270. This version will be released in about 3 weeks. We will continue to support the dual publishing for 6 months. So that takes us to release 282. And then starting 283 is when we would only publish under Hiero. And for Rust, we would start dual publishing process with version 038, continue to publish under Hiero and Hashgraph until 050 of Rust, and then 051 is when we would just publish under Hiero. And then for Java, we wanted to provide notice to the Java community for 9 months, communicating that, hey, there's this hard cutover that is coming up. Java will no longer be published under Hashgraph, but under the Hiero package namespace, and provide that communication for about 9 months so that developers can be prepared. And then communicate that starting from version 280 of the Java Hiero SDK, we would start publishing under the new Hiero namespace instead of Hashgraph. I think this information was missing the last time that we presented, and I believe the request was to provide the maybe official version numbers and plan around how we're planning to roll this out. So we have that here today. Any questions?
I'll just add supporting information here. So we've got 2 PRs open there in the comments from myself and Andrew above. They're both at the point that they are in review. What they do, they basically add a new feature set inside of the publishing workflows to add in a dual publish option that we can enable through feature PR. So all we have to do is flip one environment variable inside of the workflows, and then we're good to go. Everything here has been tested in both Rust and JavaScript for dual publishing, both under Hashgraph and Hiero Ledger, and it's looking pretty good.
Okay. Any
So sounds good.
questions on it? Concerns about the timeline from somebody? Perfect. That's great. Then thank you for the update.
Do we need to vote on this, Hendrik? Does the TSC need to vote on this plan or anything?
I don't think so. I mean, no, not from my point of view. That is, I mean, I see several thumbs up you have included the maintainers of the SDKs, when it comes to Hedera, the developer advocates and so on are on board to communicate on that. I believe that is really moving forward quite well. May.
Yeah, how is this going to be pushed out to the public?
Yeah. Zimi, do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, I was just checking to see if we have a developer communications section in this ticket, and this will be through newsletters, blog, Discord, Twitter, all of the channels that the developer relations team typically uses to communicate information.
Could you please put, I would appreciate if we could have communication to Hashpack, and we can also reach out to our user base and developers and stuff there, just as a because we have a lot of developers that work with us, and they will need to know this as well. So I would, and then we can share that with all of our partners as well.
Sure, yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Maybe I'm just thinking out, maybe we can, I mean, we have this LFDT meetups where I already had like what are the Hiero SDKs as a meeting, and they are recorded. So maybe we can do a short informal video about what we are doing, about the timeline, and you know, have it then on YouTube or something. Coming not from the DAs, but even from the Hiero project. Maybe that would be good too. Yeah.
Well, I just think also maybe did you mention a blog post on the Hiero website?
Yeah, blog post on the Hiero website. I think, yeah, I think we're at a current state, a good state now, where it would make sense to maybe do a blog post like the future of the Hiero SDKs or something like that, where we give an overview about the timelines and what we would want to change. I mean, because that is currently a discussion, which is, or is it a discussion, an issue? I don't know, which is great, but creating the official timeline, since that is for several things now defined, put into a blog post, that would be really good, yes. No idea who would be the best person to do that. Maybe me, and Mikael.
I can support. I can support on that as well, Henrik.
Please.
Keith.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So that sounds good. So does support mean you would like to drive that, or like?
Yes, I will help drive it. I just want to make one comment, is that to me, at least, I think most of this communication will happen as we get closer to the dates. Because I mean, the real life impact for developers is that at some point, if they want to upgrade the version of their SDK and their code, they will need to start using the new namespace. So to me, I mean, we should do some communication well in advance, but like people forget about it. So it's really the important communication will happen in the time leading up to the when we start deprecating the old namespace.
So regarding the usage, I agree with you, but I think like the future of the SDKs or something like that, right? The roadmap for the SDKs for the next year, something like that, would be a really nice blog post, especially in the Hiero blog, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I think we would want to do something like, before the dual publishing process starts, just to let developers know that this is coming. And then there should be ongoing communication during the time we're supporting dual publishing to remind developers like, hey, we're supporting it for, on X more releases, please make sure you upgrade and such.
Yeah.
Yes, for something like this, the community definitely appreciates over communication rather than being blindsided. Even if you're like, well, we posted on the blog and we tweeted about it and stuff, and they're like, well, I didn't check it. We've seen this happen before, and even though you've communicated as best you could, there are still people who miss out, and that's still going to be the case here. But the more we can push it out, the more we can just tell people to spread the word, then the less people will be surprised. And even if they are surprised, everyone in the community will just be like, well, it was out there, everybody knows this. So that's basically what we want to try to achieve here, is just getting as many people aware of it as possible, even if they're not going to act on it.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm not on the road, so I can't see if we have other hands up. I'm just curious if we are able to measure who is hitting the kind of old targets versus the new targets to see the adoption rate as we make the transitions.
I don't know if we can see that for all artifact repositories. Maybe Roger can say something about it. I know for some we definitely can see that. Yeah, the usage of the like namespace when it comes to what version of the SDK is downloaded.
Yeah, I think we can pull that number from both NPM and from crates.io, like how many downloads there are of each package.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. And then we can like maybe once a month have an update in the TSC and see that the one goes down, the other one goes up. That would be great. Cool. So we have 3 minutes left, so there was not much space for a complex new topic. Anyway, I would like to use those 3 minutes to give an update on the next one, which is, Richard's suggestion to do a change in the charter to make the definition who is active, who is able to vote more easy than it is today, where I need to create this table to figure out who can vote. Oh, Keith, you have something else?
So I just want to make a quick comment. I mean, I think particularly for the Blockstream HIP today, I mean, it's quite a complex HIP. So of course, maybe we didn't get time to get to everyone's questions, or maybe you think of questions later. I mean, please leave them in the HIP channel, like on hips.hedera.com, and I'm sure Mark and the team can work to answer any questions offline.
Great, good point. Thanks, Keith. Oh yeah, I was here. So Richard's idea was to make this definition of who is an active member of the TSC in a given meeting, or even for asynchronous things, and is allowed to vote, which is currently super complex based on the definition we have in the charter. And the idea was to just remove it from the charter and says who is in a meeting from the TSC can vote. We had some discussions about that last week with several pros and cons. And one outcome is let's check how others are doing this. Are there any best practices? And what I did is I checked at the Linux Foundation and at the Eclipse Foundation. And I have not found anything that is complex as we have it. It's mostly like who's there can vote. And I even had got information about that from LFDT. I had a discussion with Hart and Daniela, so the leaders of the LFDT, and they would be totally fine if we go to who is in a meeting is allowed to vote and make that easy. So nothing we will continue to decide on today, because time is up and we don't have quorum. This is just the information that there is no problem from a legal perspective or anything by moving that forward. Okay, everything else I will put on the agenda for the next week. I think that was a really packed meeting. Thanks again for getting us into the news of the SDKs, about new HIPs, and so on. And see you all in the upcoming community meetings or next week in the TSC meeting then.
Thanks,
Bye.
Edward.
Thank you.